morning. It's Monday, May 10th. And yesterday, at some point, the Chinese rocket that was returning to Earth from out of space supposedly crashed into the Indian Ocean. That's a good thing. We wouldn't want something like that to crash on land in a populated area. Now, the report of the crash has not been verified by any agency except the Chinese Space Agency. So we haven't had any reports of any disaster anyplace else, so I'm assuming that the Chinese Space Agency has told us the emes, as we say in Yiddish, the truth. Why am I talking about this? Because we don't pay attention to what goes on in outer space, beside the fact that every couple of weeks or months we're launching another rocket somewhere, or some group of space travelers is returning to Earth. But there is a problem in outer space. It's truly an environmental threat to those of us on Earth. And it's growing. And it's the problem associated with space junk. There are many particles floating around in space that we put out there with our launches of our rockets and with our adventures into space and all the satellites we have launched to keep track of what's going on in the rest of the world and to provide us with valuable information and to run the GPS systems, etc. So the technology that's out in space is for our good, but the space junk that's out there is not good. So did you know that we as humans generate over 1 billion metric tons of garbage every year? And so it should not surprise you that we have created loads of junk in space. Earth is surrounded by what we will call orbiting garbage. And there's over 20,000 pieces, larger than a softball floating around. And there's over 500,000 pieces larger than a marble, plus millions of pieces that are too small to track. The garbage comes from old satellites, rocket bodies, and fragments and particles that make up something like 9,000 tons of material that's continuing to circle the Earth. Anywhere from a few hundred meters to more than 35,000 kilometers in altitude. And most of it's in the low Earth orbit. And pieces of space junk can lose altitude over time, and they usually incinerate in the atmosphere. Now, we don't recognize this phenomenon, but apparently space junk re-enters the atmosphere every day. And it goes mostly unnoticed because it never reaches the ground. Re-entry is probably the best thing that can happen because it removes the space junk from the atmosphere, where it could collide with functioning satellites and create more junk. So human life is threatened by this space junk when they are traveling in a spacecraft. But it's quite possible that the effects of these particles burning up on re-entry can also affect human life. And there's no real work that has been done to examine that possibility. But we are now starting to study the effects of fuel exhaust from rocket launches. We are now trying to learn the effects on the human body that particles of soot and alumina have on us humans, because those particles remain trapped in the stratosphere, and they can have a debilitating effect on the ozone layer. Now, we all know about the ozone layer. It protects life on Earth from the savage effects of ultraviolet radiation by absorbing it. This is not the first time that the ozone layer has been under attack. It's constantly under attack from things that we do on Earth, like the use of aerosols and the coolants in refrigerators. Now, in 1987, there was something called the Montreal Protocols, which put controls on the amounts of aerosols and the amounts of coolants that were used. And I point this out because as the number of rocket launches increase, there will be more space junk. And more space junk means more re-entries. Right now, it's not clear the real effects of this space junk. But we have finally awakened to the possibility that this could be a major threat. So scientists are now looking into different materials that they might use for spacecraft manufacture. Materials that will not create alumina and other deadly particles. The Japanese are looking into encasing spaceships in wood because that is a much safer material if it comes back to Earth on re-entry. So right now we're beginning to realize that using space as landfill is dangerous to the human population. Now we've gone through this for hundreds of years. Every time there was some form of industrial revolution, there was a dramatic increase in what I will call garbage. So if we look at this garbage that's floating around in space, and it's dangerous to those of us who live on Earth, then it's a good thing that we are finally waking up and trying to save our atmosphere. We have to treat the atmosphere now just like we treat the oceans, where we worry about the garbage disposal that was thrown into the oceans and the tons of plastic that is floating around in the sea. So as space travel increases, and it will increase, we on Earth should take nothing for granted. We on Earth have to protect ourselves. And let's hope that the scientists are going to continue on the mission of space garbage control, space garbage collection. So that's all I have for this morning. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.